Welcome back to the Rebel Tribe. Today we are diving into a topic that pretty much every woman over 40 feels in her bones, health. That going from depletion to vitality and how to do that after 40. This isn't about bouncing back or fixing yourself or pretending your body didn't change overnight without asking your permission, because it absolutely did. It's about what actually happens to us after 40, hormonally, emotionally, physically, and how we stop running on empty and start rebuilding our energy and our strength and our trust in our bodies again. I'm joined today by Sharon Reece, Faye Nulman, and Claudine François. Three women who each bring a little bit of a different lens to this conversation, but every one of them understands what it means to move from survival mode into something more sustainable. So, this is a real conversation for real women. No fluff, no shame, just truth and tools. Welcome, ladies.
Hey, hey.
Hey.
Can you each introduce yourselves real quick before we get started? Start with Sharon.
Okay, my name is Sharon Reece. I live in North Texas near DFW. Um, and I was a missionary in Brazil for 30 years, back in the States now. And I've run a marathon.
At what age?
Right after I turned 75,
Yep. See, so, and when did you start running?
when I turned 70.
Yeah, okay. So we're suitably impressed. Faye.
Yes, Faye Nulman, uh, Jersey girl at heart, currently South Carolina girl, loving being called ma'am, and an emotional alchemist or a psychic warrior of the unconscious mind. Choose your title. The work that I do is to teach people how to move past their trauma point, their stuck point, their emotional ugh, right? Because we all get to a point at some time in life where the white picket fence is not defining who we thought we were going to be anymore. And it helps us to leave the old things behind and to move forward.
Yeah, around here we just call her the Oracle.
Or the
Hey,
or the woo.
or the woo, whichever works. Claudine, please, and tell us about your book, Claudine, please, while you're at it.
Oh, sure. I'm Claudine François. I'm a functional health practitioner. I help high performing women in midlife who are exhausted and frustrated figure out what their bodies are really asking for, right? We talk about symptoms. What is your body actually asking for? And I teach them how to rebuild real energy, focus, and health without restriction or burnout. And I recently wrote a whole book about it called Your Midlife Body Code: How to Decode Symptoms, Realign the Body, and Reclaim Control. Because a lot of women in this time of life feel out of control.
I'll vouch for that. All right, so I just have some questions I'm going to I really want to ask all of you, because like I said, we have all been there. I have been there. Each one of you has helped me move past that in some capacity, and that's why I invited all of you here. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions, and I'd like all of you to answer, because you all bring a different, like I said, a different take to everything. So we'll just go around. All righty. So when you hear the phrase from depletion to vitality, what does that mean to you personally, not theoretically? What does that mean to you personally? Let's start with Claudine.
Oh, well, I was in a big, well, I guess I've had two different bouts of going from depletion to vitality. Because the first was when I was in corporate for 20 plus years. And anyone who's in corporate knows that it can really suck the life out of you. And so, I had all kinds of health issues. I was getting chronic migraines. I had all this stubborn weight, even though I was eating quote unquote healthy and working out. I was snippy with my husband and my kids. I was just kind of a bear to be around. And come to find out, I had a lot of underlying issues that my body was trying to give me, to get my attention by giving me these symptoms. And I had to work my way through that to health. And then a few years ago, I got mold toxicity because my whole office that I'm sitting in now, the whole ceiling kind of caved in with water and mold. And if anyone has had mold toxicity, you know that it takes years. It's really hard on the body and it takes years to get better from. So that was another journey in and of itself. So that going from depletion to vitality is something I've experienced firsthand more than once.
Okay.
Ooh, uh, I'll have to default to my migraine story. I used to suffer from migraines from childhood and then all the way up into my 40s when one night I was playing around with EFT, the tapping along the meridian lines. And I got an intuitive hit saying, you don't need to be sick to get positive emotional attention. And I tapped on that and I immediately felt things getting lighter. And after that, I did another couple of rounds for things that came up that felt relevant at the time. Headaches were gone. So a little shift in diet, a little extra hydration, because most people are super dehydrated and don't even realize it. Today, if I start to feel like I'm getting a headache, I know I haven't hydrated enough. So that was major because when the headaches would start, they were so debilitating. I would have to be in a dark room, pulling my hair out by my roots. I would wrap a bandana as tight as I could for the pressure. And until I threw up physically, the headache would not leave my body. So that was really no way to live. So that was pretty much from depleted to fully functioning again.
I need to put in a pitch for the hydration here because you know me, I'm not a big water drinker. I just don't like it. But I've been on this reset journey this year to kind of reset my health. And I've been making a concerted effort to drink more water. And do you remember, Claudine probably doesn't know, but Faye and Sharon have heard me both complain a couple times about this knot that I've had in my neck and my shoulder for years. Okay. Years. And since I've started actually drinking more water, I can move my head and it doesn't hurt. It was all dehydration. That whole freaking knot was dehydration. Who knew? But anyway, so yes, drink more water. Sharon, what about you? Depletion to vitality. What does it mean?
Okay, I've got two stories about that. One, when I was 40, I got infectious hepatitis, and I talk about depletion. There is nothing left. You can't even walk across the room, pretty much. And what the strategy that enabled me to recover from that over, well, probably a period of a couple of years was exercise and a very specific diet, which actually required me to eat way more complex carbohydrates than I had ever eaten in my life. But that enabled me to get back to normalcy. The second incident was after we lost our son, John. I went into immediate cessation of my periods. I believe I was like 52 when that happened, or maybe almost 53. And I recall going through a period of probably about 6 months where I thought I was going into early Alzheimer's because I could not remember anything, any conversations. I couldn't remember if somebody was alive or dead, or where I put my precious paper that I had just had in my hand. And again, it was diet primarily that brought me out of that completely. Just I considered it really almost miraculous going to um, really full capacity again.
So was there a moment when you realized that your body was asking for something different after 40, Faye?
Ooh, good question. Yeah, my body was asking for less of the programming that I was raised with and more of an expansion of what fed me spiritually. I was raised in a pretty religious home, and I was always asking questions and never felt like I got proper answers to those questions. And after my divorce, I was working in a retail environment for cell phones. And every day I would go in and I felt like that was depleting my energy completely from head to toe. And I just had this sense of knowing before I knew anything about the woo that there had to be another answer because there was no way I was going to go from that point. I just had this realization that I needed to reinvent myself yet again. So that was a pretty big, ooh.
What about you, Sharon?
Oh, I can really identify with what Faye was saying. When I was in the process of recovering from hepatitis, I was around 40, and I had really just a spiritual crisis. And it was as though I had an encounter with God that changed things forever. I mean, it was dramatic within minutes. Just an amazing experience.
Claudine, this is your question because you wrote a whole book about this. Okay.
Yeah, I think
What
that
happens the moment you realize your body is asking for something different? Because dang, we're at that point now where it's just like we're not those youngins anymore.
yeah, and I think my experience is similar to a lot of other women's in that all of a sudden, it feels like all of a sudden anyway, everything that you used to do doesn't work anymore. Right? So you're 38 and you can stay out all night drinking and be fine the next day, or you can eat a bunch of carbs or pizza or whatever, and then you can just like run it off. And all of a sudden you're in your mid to late 40s and you're like, whoa, why is it I have extra weight on my tummy? Why is it no matter how hard I work out or how clean I eat, I'm foggy brained, I'm fluffy, as some people have told me. I have a little more extra to love. I'm irritable with people. I can't seem to remember things. Like all of these symptoms, and including random ones that they don't even necessarily associate with this time of life, like getting certain pain in different parts of their body. Like some people will tell me I have frozen shoulder, or I get spasms in my legs, or just random things that are happening, seemingly random things that are happening, where your body is actually telling you, hey, there is a different way you need to take care of me now. And you really haven't been taking care of me properly the last 40 some years, but now it's on you. Now I'm not compensating for you anymore. You've got to figure out how to take care of yourself. And all of these quote unquote symptoms
Yeah.
are signals that I am sending you, data points that I'm giving you to tell you this is not okay. These are things you need to address. And girl, you got to figure it out.
So I know when we were going through it, when I was going through that, I'm way over 40, in case you didn't know. And I remember just being tired all the time, just like exhausted. And I always took it like Claudine said, well, I stayed up working late, or I didn't get enough sleep. So, that's just how it is. I'm getting older and I'm more tired now. And I just was like, that's just how it is now. How many of you had some of these signs of depletion that took and like, yeah, okay, that's just how it is. And now you realize that, well, no, it doesn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be that way. That's not how it is. I can change it. Sharon?
Yeah, I was one of those who I required a nap every single day. I could not function really without one from the time I can remember. You know, it didn't necessarily get worse as I got older, I don't think. I mean, it's been a long time since I was 40, so it's a little bit hard to remember. But yeah, I always knew that there was a way, there had to be a way not to be feeling tired all the time. And over the course of many different supplements that I've used and things that I've come across, different strategies, I have come to the point where I realize that I was right. I don't have to feel tired. Nobody really has to feel tired. You just have to have the right tools in your tool bucket.
Amen.
And those tools.
Amen.
What about you, Faye?
Whoa. During that time frame, as Sharon was talking, all of these thoughts started bubbling up in my head. So that was the time of the divorce, and my life as I thought I knew it was going to be was over. And I went back and enrolled in massage school. And while I was learning massage, then there were all these alternative complementary modalities that also began to show up, and I started studying. So I think because I was in that period of learning so much about alternative ways of taking care of myself and participating in that learning, I don't believe that I noticed the shifts as much because I was actually doing a lot of self-care during the learning, which was pretty awesome if you think about it. And then when I started my practice, as I was working with people, because energetically, when you're giving, you're also receiving. So as I was working with people, I felt like whatever was happening prior to that session, couple of deep breaths, started to work with the person. By the end of the session, I was renewed. So there's another way to see things.
And again, Claudine, you wrote a whole book about this. How many of us assume? I mean, we do. So many women assume that exhaustion, the headaches, it's all just how it is now. What are some signs of depletion that we normalize that we shouldn't?
Well, pretty much everything that we've talked about here are sign. If your body is feeling depleted, it is a sign from your body. But you're right. Most of us typically we start with the traditional medical route, right? Like for example, when I had my migraines in my 30s, I went to my annual OB/GYN appointment and she was like, "Oh, we need to put you on birth control or we need to put you on all these medications, right? Like these anti-migraine medications." And similar to Faye's experience, when I had a migraine, I couldn't keep anything down, not even water. So I'd take the anti-migraine medication and it would come back up. And then I went back to my OB/GYN and she's like, "Oh, well, here's an anti-nausea pill." So I would try that and that didn't work either, right? Like it's like, sorry, if I can't keep it down, it's not. So then I go back to her and she says, "Oh, well, put it up the other end, like a suppository." And I was like, "Girl, can we not figure out why I am getting these migraines instead of you just giving me a pill to band-aid the thing? And I think that's really what started my curiosity, my inquisition as to what is truly going on. Because again, I think so many of us expect the doctors, the traditional medical system to know, but they actually aren't trained to figure out why. And that's a big thing. And you know, as kids, we're always like, why? And your parents are like, because. But I guess I never grew out of the why because I really wanted to know what is the underlying root cause. And that's essentially why I wrote my book is like, there are causes for every single one of these things. And I actually have a companion to the book that you can get. There's a little like link that you can get all these extra bonuses where it tells you you have this system, excuse me, you have this symptom. It is related to this system. And then this is what you can do about it. So you can actually kind of backtrack what your body is trying to tell you based on the clue, the symptom that it's giving you.
I don't know how to exactly phrase this but I've seen it, and so I'm going to ask the question because I've seen it in a lot of women. Some of our burnout is absolutely physical. We're going through changes, we're getting older, but I've come to realize that, excuse me, man, some of it is, shall we say, emotional or identity related because along with that shift in our physical bodies, 40 is when it's when we start thinking about careers changing, retirements coming, kids are moving out. If our whole identity was our family and now all of a sudden our kids are gone, we're in empty nest syndrome time. How much do you think that the burnout is physical and how much do you think might be emotional or identity related? And I'm going to let whoever thinks they want to answer that one because that's a little bit of a different question. Go ahead, Faye.
Okay, so that's perfect. And that fits in with how I cured my migraines because it was after going to neurologists and them not being able to tell me what was wrong with me, it turned out that it was emotional. And oftentimes, as Claudine said, the body will give you signs. We're just not taught, excuse me, we're not taught to pay attention to those signs or to look at them. In the beginning, when people would come in for a massage and they would complain about low back, I knew energetically there was a good possibility that there was something family, financial, security, or home that was associated with that low back pain. And if I asked the questions around that, 9 times out of 10, somebody was worried about losing a job or a spouse had just lost their income. I had one woman come in one day, and this was a perfect example. She literally walked in, barely could walk, hunched over. And we had had a conversation prior to coming in. Low back was completely blown out. I said, all right, we'll do a couple things. We started with a little bit of massage. She felt some relief. And then I said, let me do some EFT while you're lying on the table. So she put her hand up and I did all of the tapping for her. One round. I just went around one time on the tapping points. She immediately threw her hand up. She said, that feels so much better. Do it again. A total of 3 rounds of EFT. She gets up off of the table. The 3 rounds of EFT wiped out the low back because we addressed the emotionality of what she was feeling around her husband losing his income. She literally skipped out of the office when we were done. So they're kind of symbiotic when you look at it. Yes, there are physical things that Western medicine will tell you, no, this is the cause, but they're not trained to look for the root. And oftentimes it is emotional or it is energetic. So that's my answer.
I would
Anybody else?
love to tap onto that
Please do.
because uh, Faye is so right, right? These are interconnected. Your brain is not separate from the rest of your body. right? And there's a feedback loop, right? Your brain is telling your body and your body is telling your brain. And in this time of life, when we start hitting in perimenopause, our body actually becomes less emotionally resilient. So when it feels like things are more stressful in this time of life, it's because they are. When your estrogen is lowering, estrogen is like a cortisol buffer. So when that buffer is going down, everything feels more stressful, right? The cortisol hits harder. And then as our progesterone is lowering, that calming hormone, progesterone, isn't there either. So not only are you not getting the cortisol buffer, you're not getting the calming like sidekick. So everything feels so much harder and it hits harder. And there's an estrogen receptor on in every system of the body. So as your estrogen is lowering, it's taking the body time to recalibrate, right? That's why perimenopause, menopause is a it's not just like, well, menopause is one day, but this whole time frame, it takes 5-6 years for your body to recalibrate, to figure out like how to deal with these changed levels of hormones in your body, because it's so used to working with a certain level of both estrogen and progesterone. So as your body is figuring that out, you may feel, if you aren't responding to these changes, you aren't recalibrating what you're doing, right? If you're not taking the signs, the signals, and changing your habits, being better to yourself, making sure you get enough sleep, making sure you get enough water, making sure you're eating the foods that will support your body rather than deplete it. If you're not doing those things, everything's going to feel a lot harder. It's going to feel like you're trudging through mud because your body needs additional supports. And the problem is none of us are taught what those supports are, which is why in my book, I actually lay it out like, this is what your body needs. If you just give it this, you're going to feel so much better as you go through this transition, as your body learns to recalibrate.
Sharon, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think that absolutely there's a relationship there. And I just want to say that in terms of my running and deciding to do that, nobody told me I could do that. I told me I could do that. And um, and then I went out and I did it. And it's like the things you tell yourself, they're so related to how you really feel physically. I mean, it's your stories are absolutely important, of the utmost importance.
So, what are the biggest changes that you experienced after 40 that no one prepared you for? Okay. No one told me I was going to gain weight. I have been so thin most of my life that I remember at one point doctors were telling my parents that they needed to give me like these god awful shakes so that I could put on weight because I was so thin. And now all of a sudden it's like, boom, there's like an extra whole person here. And I'm looking at it going, what happened? And why did nobody tell me? What do you think? What biggest changes that happened to you after 40 that no one at all prepared you for?
Well, can I just pipe up on that one?
Yes, you may.
That's a big one. That's a big one. The weight gain. I was like you, Melodian, skinny as a rail, just all my life. And all of a sudden I was wearing size medium instead of size small. And it was like, what happened? So, but I was able to find the tools that enabled me to um, actually lose weight at age 65, and I thought, this is really amazing. This is so cool. So, you know, I wasn't prepared to ever be a size medium, ever.
What about you, Claudine?
Well, I think I mentioned earlier that I was in corporate America for 25 years. And one of the reasons I liked being in corporate, I was in accounting. So in accounting, you have all these deadlines. And so it's kind of a self imposed stress, right? It's like you got to hurry up and do all the things to meet the deadline. And then you're like, cool, deadline met. check that off the box, you know. But then as I got older, I did not realize that I didn't know that I was going to be less resilient to stress. I didn't realize that that wasn't going to feel good anymore. That was actually going to feel more depleting than anything else. And kind of related to that, I didn't understand the sleep stress connection, right? So for a lot of women when they're in this age range, they all of a sudden aren't sleeping well. I mean, I have a lot of friends who tell me, "Oh, I just wake up at 3 a.m. and then I'm starting my day." And I'm like, "That's not okay, girl. You need to sleep. Your body needs sleep." So not I think for a lot of women not realizing that all of these little it's almost like, yeah, you know, all these little drops end up being a river. Like you don't realize that all these little things that you kind of that are accumulating are all signals that something in your body needs to change. And once we a recognize that and b get the tools to do that, to make that change, we can start to feel like a normal human again, because a lot of us in this time of life don't feel like normal humans. We just feel like we're kind of walking through a fog and we're just trying to make it through the day, right? So once you have those tools, you can actually start to, I hate to over this word is overused, but it really, you know, thrive. You can thrive. You can actually be the normal human that you used to be, and you know, like you said, get back to the weight that you want, get the sleep that you want, feel, you know, the brain working again the way you want. All the things that used to make you you can get back to that. You just have to have the right tools.
How about you, Faye?
Oh, that lovely little inner voice that would keep bringing up, excuse me, all of the unthought things from the day, just as you're falling asleep. And having these internal arguments with those thoughts and not being able to sleep because of it, because you're having this argument with yourself. You're tired, you're exhausted, but where's the sleep? Once I did my hypnosis training and realized that we carry the same, what is it, 60,000 thoughts a day that are basically on a hypnotic loop.
60,000?
60,000, same 60,000 thoughts a day. And when they're on an open loop, when we haven't found a resolution, that's what keeps floating through our brain. And when it's quiet, that's when they come up, because they go, "Oh, now you'll hear me." So finding the end of that loop, because that's essentially a hypnotic trance right there, when you can complete that loop, gone. So you know from personal experience that a little hypnosis can give you better sleep.
Yes, it can. I will vouch for that because that used to be my problem. I remember a meme someone shared to me with me that was like, I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to do this, 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 and then I'm going to go to bed and have a good night's sleep. And your brain is like, first off, we are not doing anything. Okay. I was like, yeah, I've been there. How do you shut your head off at night? How do you shut your mind off at night? How do you make that happen? So I can vouch for the hypnosis. And thank you. And that video is on YouTube if you want to see fun.
That was fun.
Watch Faye hypnotize me on YouTube. It was
Can I
fun.
just share something? Can I share something that just happened to me night before last? My husband, for some reason, was into snoring with a blow at the end of each snore. Snore, blow, snore, blow, snore, blow. And so I was so tempted to get up and go sleep on the couch, but I thought, no, I'm going to try something else. I am going to say to myself with every snore blow, "I love you anyway. I love you anyway." And so I don't even know. It didn't take very many "I love you anyways" till I was zonked out and didn't hear anymore. It was my own self hypnosis.
Exactly.
You're You're a finer woman than I am. I'd have been nudging him in the ribs, going, "You need to go sleep on the couch." So why is it? Because, like I said, I was I was military. Okay, so I've always been pretty much. I worked out. I ran. I did all the stuff. I ate right, and suddenly, like I said, well, I got cancer, and that did throw me for a little bit of a loop because, like, well, dang, I'm doing all the right stuff, and I still have cancer. What the heck? And that did knock me off my stride for a little bit because I figured, what the heck? Nothing I'm doing is going to make a difference. I still have it. But and then I got back into it. I eat right. I mean, I eat well. I do not eat a lot of junk. I'm drinking the water now. I'm getting more sleep now, and it's coming off slowly now, finally, but it's taken me years where it's finally beginning to lose the weight. Why is it that even after all this time of doing the right thing, so many of our health plans that we have followed all our lives that have kept us in shape all this time suddenly just stop working when we hit this point? That's a Claudine question because she knows. Okay.
But it is
Why don't they work anymore?
because when your estrogen drops, you become less insulin or you become more insulin resistant. So you're less insulin sensitive. So basically, you pack on the weight way faster and your body is less likely to let it go. Because again, we're more sensitive to cortisol. So we get stressed out more easily. And when you're stressed, your body holds on to weight. But also because your metabolism is essentially slowing down, which is what that insulin resistance means, you actually have to try much harder to lose weight. So when we get to this age, there are a few things you can do. One is really focus on what you eat, like making sure you're getting enough protein, so getting 20 to 30 grams of protein 3 times a day. I know that some people really like to do this whole intermittent fasting thing. When women are in the perimenopause, especially, like their body's already too stressed out. Intermittent fasting doesn't work for them usually. As you get past menopause, maybe, but you still need to make sure you're focusing on your protein and reducing as much as possible any kind of simple carbohydrates, right? So complex carbs in the forms of vegetables, maybe some complex carbs in the forms of actual carbs, like a brown rice instead of a white rice, a quinoa instead of, a sweet potato instead of a white potato, those things. But then you also have to work on gaining muscle, right? So this is where the protein helps. When you gain muscle, you actually increase your metabolism, and we naturally start losing muscle after, like, say 35 years old. We just start every year we're losing muscle. So we have to work even harder to have that additional muscle mass to keep our metabolism going and for our healthy bones. Like, it is really critical for women, which is why for a lot of women in this age range, I recommend taking some creatine powder with in their protein shakes or whatever they're having for breakfast, because it helps you with that energy and muscle building and brain function. It's really helpful for that. But focusing on strength training, hitting your protein goals, reducing or eliminating simple carbs, those are all kind of key. And then if you really want to add another layer to it, you can get crazy. I don't want to say crazy, but you can get even more, I guess, focused on it by adding certain peptides that actually help rev up your metabolism, which is a whole nother topic.
Yes. So we have all been there. We have all gotten through it in our own ways. If there's a woman out there right now that's listening to this and she's going through this herself and she's like, okay, I don't even know where to start. I'm I'm down, I'm out, I'm putting on the weight, I'm tired all the time. I don't know what to do. What's the very first thing that each of you would recommend, because it worked for you? What's the first place she should start? Sharon.
Well, my first intuition was to say, get Claudine's book. But I haven't read it yet. So, but I think you need help. You're not going to figure it out yourself, pretty much, is what I would say. You need to get help from somebody who has done it and then follow in their footsteps. Anyway, I'm just telling my husband, we are recording here. Don't get interrupting here. I mean, that was what worked for me. Every time that I had a point in my life where I really needed a dramatic intervention, I guess, or something that would change things, it was as a result of some other resource outside of myself. Um, it's just the way it is.
I agree. We didn't all wake up this morning being medical experts and knowing. Faye, what about you?
That no is a complete sentence.
Yay.
Because we have been taking care of everybody else for so long and putting our needs off to the side, we have forgotten that no is okay. That we can set time aside for ourselves, that it's not selfish, it's actually helping us replenish and to fill our cup. It's like when you're flying. What's the one thing that they tell you? If compression in the cabin drops and the oxygen mask falls, put yours on first. Because if you're not breathing, you're not going to be any help to anybody else. And it's the same thing in your day-to-day life. If you don't make yourself the priority, ain't nobody else going to do it for you. So what's the saying? Happy wife, happy life. For those that are married, for those that are not, you are your priority in whatever form that takes for you.
What about you, Claudine? What is the very first place we should start?
Well, gosh, I was going to say something really similar to what Faye said, which is that you need to learn to put yourself first for sure. Because as she mentioned, a lot of us spent 40 plus years taking care of everybody else. And when I meet with a woman and I tell her, you need to do X, Y, or Z for you, usually her first thing is like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, I have to take care of this person and I have to do this for this person. I'm like, how about no? How about you don't have to do all those things for those other people first? How about you're the number one priority? Put it in your calendar. So for me, like every day I have in my calendar what I'm doing for my physical body, my spiritual body, my emotional body. Those are in my calendar. Those are non-negotiable. I don't, if my kid needs something during that time, my husband's taking him. Somebody else he's dealing with it. He's taking the school bus instead of me driving him. Like, lo siento, dude, you got to figure it out. Because if I am not in a good emotional place, you're not going to want to be around me anyway. So I need to do my sauna blanket right now. But it feels, like Faye mentioned, it feels selfish, right? It feels like, whoa, you're not taking your kid to school because you need to sit in a sauna blanket? Are you kidding me? No, yeah, I do need to sit in a sauna blanket because it does a lot of things for me physically, emotionally, to be able to be there for him during the times that I am supposed to be there for him. Me taking him to school versus him taking him to the bus is not going to put him in therapy, okay? so, so finding that. But aside from that, the first thing that I notice most women need is their basic minerals. So calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. If you don't know where you are on the mineral spectrum, it's easy ways to get tested, either blood testing or hair testing. I really like the hair testing because it tells me what state you're in. But most women can put a sprinkle of Celtic salt in their water. That actually boosts your energy. You can have a little bit of coconut water. If you don't think you like coconut water, try all the different brands because they taste different. Doing an Epsom salt bath or a magnesium lotion, that really helps when you're stressed, because when we are stressed, we burn through magnesium and potassium and B vitamins fast. So making sure you have your minerals in place, because if you don't have your minerals in place, nothing else in your body works, right? They are the tugboats that get everybody else where they need to go. So if you don't have those basic building blocks, you're going to feel really depleted. So that's where I usually start.
Well, I can attest to most of those because yes, once Claudine came on the summit last year and mentioned Celtic salt in the water, and I was like, salt in my water? Aren't we supposed to be giving up salt? Seriously? And then she explained why we needed it. And since I have started drinking coconut water, okay, coconut water with lemon and a little pinch of salt every morning, and now it's like even if the little dudes are bouncing around in the kitchen going, Mom, you slept a little bit late and we're hungry. It's like, well, that's too bad, guys. Mom needs her water first before anything else in the house happens. Mom needs her water. So you're not gonna starve, you'll be okay. And then yeah. And then on the, taking care of yourself first. I used to, for the longest time, cooked 2 meals because my husband eats way differently than I do and not the healthiest. And I eat differently. And I would cook 2 meals, one for him, one for me. And finally I was like, this is exhausting. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not cleaning. I'm not doing 2 meals. This is what I'm cooking. If you want something different, cook it yourself. Go eat out, go pick something. I don't care, but this is what I'm cooking. If I can make something for you adjacent to what I'm making, like if I'm cooking chicken and with mine and you want to, you want me to slather canned bottled barbecue sauce all over yours, then fine, I could do that. But I'm not cooking like chicken for me and hamburger for you. And lately, as I've been cooking now, he's beginning to look at my stuff and go, that's too bad. Can I try a little of that? And his eating is changing. He's eating healthier because if it's because he just doesn't want to go get it himself or he doesn't want to cook for himself or what, I don't know, but he's beginning to look at my food and ask for some, and his diet is becoming healthier. So by taking care of myself, I've also now improved his health because he's beginning to eat better because he's realizing that real food tastes good. Okay? Real food tastes
Saving
good.
lives. Saving lives one meal at a time.
Oh, it just cracks me up though, because for the longest time, honey, chicken and broccoli is good. Try some. Okay? Try some. Won't kill you. And okay. So what what do you think it looks like to be what does sustainable health look like? I'm not talking like, you know, okay, well, I always use Sharon as an example because she runs freaking marathons. And I know I am never going to do that. Okay. Never going to do that. Not running a marathon. I've thought about it a couple of times and then went, yeah, no. Okay. I do not want to put the amount of effort that would take into doing that. I don't have that drive. So hats off to you, girl. I love following you, but no. But then I had another friend who, he was 80 and he celebrated his 80th birthday at the top of Mount Everest. And I'm like, no. I just want sustainable health. Like I want to be able to go play with my grandkids. I want to be able to climb the stairs to the upstairs. I want to do, those little things. What does it mean to be sustainable instead of you don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to have, muscles and what does it mean? What do you think it looks like?
I can
Sharon.
jump in.
Okay, say.
Putting aside that quiet time, little meditation, some 432 hertz music, breathing exercises, even if it's only 5 minutes. Okay. I teach 5 yoga classes a week. It's movement, it's strength training on a very low key level, but it does work for bone density as well. It helps clear your mind. So there are ways to participate and have that space without, like you said, Sharon, all the power to you, girl. I'm not doing it either. But we all have different ways of getting there. So for me, I'm on the softer side.
I love yoga. Love. If I don't do my 2 yoga classes a week, I'm just like, I'm stiff. I'm kind of ornery. Like it does. I actually started yoga not for exercise. I did not start it for exercise. I started it because I was going to punch somebody through a wall and I needed I needed restorative yoga, which I call adult timeout. I needed adult timeout time. And I agree with you, Faye. Faye, I guess I agree with everything you're saying. The
Well,
breathing.
and the restorative yoga is actually, they've done studies, and the restorative yoga is overall more beneficial for your mind and your body than any other form of yoga.
I believe it because I really think it saved it saved my life because I was going insane. This was a really hard time in corporate and I was really I was so stressed out and it really saved me. Um, as a data girl, I will say that in addition to doing my twice a week restorative yoga and my sauna blanket and my strength training, for me, what's really key is I love to have the numbers, right? I spent 25 years in accounting. There's no way I'm not going to be enjoying numbers. So every year I get my numbers run. I get my blood work done. I get my functional testing done. I like to see baseline where I am and what I need to tweak, right? So in terms of sustainable health, like I can see each year, all right, well, did I get exposed to toxins this year that I need to take care of? Did I somehow excrete more magnesium and I really need to like double up on my Epsom salt baths or my magnesium lotion or my magnesium supplements? Like where do I need to tweak to really have that not only sustainable health, but like to feel amazing all the time. I need to feel amazing. If I'm going to be helping people, kind of like Faye, she's getting energy from the people that she's working with. If I'm going to be working with people day in and day out and helping them with their health, I can't be sitting here like, oh, I'm so tired and I can't think straight, right? Like I need to be on my game.
It's not going to work.
So for me, knowing my numbers and for my clients too, they will come back, once we've gotten through like the main here's what the issue is and let's resolve it. They'll come back year after year to get their new numbers, like what needs to be tweaked and adjusted so that you can go on to continue to feel awesome every day because we want to feel awesome. We're going to live, if you're 45, let's hope you live another 40 years, right? You want to feel great. You don't want to be like my dad who has neuropathy and is like shuffling around because he's not taking care of himself, right? You want to be active. You want to be like Sharon running marathons when you're 75. That's all I have to say.
Well,
What
my answer to that question, what can you do to sustain one thing that I was thinking about this ahead of time, we all need supplements. And Claudine, your idea of getting the numbers and then finding out what you actually need is really great. But our food supply doesn't give us all the stuff we need. We need to be adding in what's lacking, and especially the minerals. And the other thing I would say is emphasize getting the protein, sufficient protein, or maybe even a bit more than the minimum. I mean, that probably without my protein shakes with added protein to them, I would not be running 4 times a week and doing strength training and contemplating doing another marathon after I turn 80. I don't know. We'll see.
So how do we move from, because I know that was part of my thing when I first started down this road of, okay, I need to get my old body back, okay? And I realize now that no matter how hard I try, I am never going to be 118 pounds again, okay? That is not going to happen. And it's probably good that it doesn't happen because that was probably way too thin. But for the longest time, that was my goal is I need to get my old body back. So how do we move from that to honoring the one we have now?
Well, I will
This is a
say that the reason why we become more insulin resistant, the reason why, in terms of a evolutionary reason, why our body packs on more weight as we get older, it is actually a protective mechanism, right? Because as we get older, we're losing muscle mass. And if you get sick, for example, you need to have a little bit extra so you're not super frail, right? So if you think about it that way, and then if you are willing to, like Sharon said, eat your protein, do more strength training so you can actually build up that muscle mass, then you're basically offsetting the need for evolution to pack on the extra, I call it fluff, the extra, like a little bit extra to love, right? So you can think about it in a different way, and you can support your body the way it wants to be supported and feel strong. Because I would say instead of feeling skinny, I want to feel strong, right? And having come back from mold toxicity where I was just dragging every day, I was very weak. My muscles completely deteriorated. This is going from someone who used to work out 3 times a week, with a personal trainer, to like basically not being able to do anything. Getting back to that strength, I feel awesome, and it feels so empowering to know, like, oh, I can just run up the stairs. Remember, I broke my foot like 5 months ago. So now running up the stairs is like really exciting. I'm like, I can run up the stairs. But like going on a trip and being able to, there's silly little things. Being able to easily put my bag in the overhead compartment, right? Like having that be easy, that to me is an indication of strength. Like being able to handle certain tasks, being able to get up off the floor without using my hands. That is another example of strength. Things that you want to be able to do as you age to support your body, to support your health, and to feel like you can run a marathon if you wanted to, or not if you wanted to. But whatever your thing is, travel the world, which would be what I want to do when my kids are out of the house. I want to have the energy and the strength to do that. I don't want to be skinny. I just want to feel really healthy and powerful.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't ever care if I ever run a marathon, and I realize now, like I said, I'm never getting back to that weight, and that's probably a good thing because looking back at it, I remember now I looked bad. I had bones sticking out everywhere. But I just want to be able, Daryl and I like to travel, so I just want to be able to travel and not when we arrive at our destination be, okay, I'm exhausted. I need to take a nap now. Okay. That's
Mhm.
how I want to be. So yeah. What about you, Sharon? How do you think how do we do this? Because you were there, okay? You were there. You were struggling, and now you freaking run marathons. So how do we do that?
Well, patience, I think. I mean, it's whatever you're going to accomplish, you're not going to do it overnight. Um, Even like with my running, I set out to run a 5K. And I thought that anybody who would even consider running a marathon must be absolutely out of their mind. And but when I got to the point where I could run a 5K and then I could run a 10K and then I could actually run a half marathon, then, I mean, but it was so gradual. And I think sometimes we get too impatient with ourselves, to expect that one thing that we do is going to make a change overnight. No, it's the consistency, it is the discipline of, making the choices that will be to your benefit and not harm you.
Yeah, I love that discipline because I see pictures of you. I see your videos where you're out there and you can see your breath and you got the hat on, and she's running and I'm like, yeah, no. Okay. Not
But
happening here.
I think it's important to find something you like, right?
Mhm.
Because it may not be, Melodian, it may not be for you running, but maybe you like pickleball, maybe you like reformer Pilates, maybe you like something that's more team oriented, or you're with other people, or like it could be anything. But like for you have to find the thing that you want to do. Because if you don't want to do it, you won't do it, right? As I can tell you from experience. Like I've tried lots of different kinds of workouts. I have to do the one that I enjoy. Otherwise, it's not happening. You can force yourself, you can try to force yourself, but you really will find any excuse to either not do it, not do it well, not do it long enough. So you really have to find something that you either enjoy doing or you're doing with a friend, so you're getting that social aspect of it, coupling it with something that you like. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
As long as it's not 20 degrees outside. Like, what was it one day? It was like 30 degrees or something, and Sharon's out there. It's 30 degrees outside, and I'm like, man, no. It's 30 degrees outside. I'm on my couch with my blanket and a hot cup of tea.
I'm sure she warmed up.
Discipline, discipline. What about you? What about you, Faye? How do we
Mindset.
move through that? Pardon?
Mindset. Being able to look yourself dead on in the mirror, in your own eyes, and saying, I love you. I can't tell you when I give that assignment to somebody after a coaching session or hypnosis, I tell them, go do some mirror work. Because if you don't love yourself as you are, there's nothing going to change. And that's the hardest thing. Most of us can't even look in our own eyes and acknowledge who we are on a soul level. So the quickest way to affect change physically is right here. Start to love yourself, and then the information that you need will come to you as to what your next step will be.
I wish more people taught mirror affirmations. I teach them because they work. They work. Words are so powerful. And when you say them out loud, they're even more powerful. And yes, it's been proven. There are so many documented studies now that if you stand in front of the mirror and look yourself in the eye and say the words, it actually rewires your brain. So I don't understand why more and more, I don't understand why that's not taught more. Mirror affirmations are amazing.
Oh, that's a whole nother conversation, Melodian.
I know. We can do another one. It's okay. So if you could leave women with one truth about health after 40, what would it be? Let's start with Sharon.
Well, it's your choice. It really is.
What about you, Faye?
I agree with Sharon. It's a choice that we consciously make. We can choose to put a number in our mind and be that number, or we can choose to be vital and find things where we're learning and expanding and growing. Just because we reach a certain physical number doesn't mean that we have to be that number.
Claudine?
Your body is not broken. It's trying to get your attention. And when you support it instead of fighting it, it will respond. You just need to know how to support it.
Well, thank you, ladies, for joining me today. I don't know, this whole conversation is such an important reminder that all the stuff that's happening to us right now, it's not personal failure. It's a signal. Okay. Our bodies aren't breaking down to punish us because we didn't eat enough vegetables or we didn't drink enough water. They're asking us to live differently and to take care of ourselves differently and to stop carrying the things that we weren't ever meant to hold forever. So if you're listening and you realize that you've been running on empty, know this one little thing. It's not gone, okay? Granted, you're never probably going to go back to the body you had before, but it's not gone. Your health isn't gone. It's rebuildable. And you don't have to do it all at once. So thank you to Sharon. Thank you, Faye. Thank you, Claudine, for bringing wisdom and honesty and all of your knowledge and humanity into this conversation. And to those of you listening, you're not behind and you're not failing and you're not alone. We have 3 ladies right here that'll help you if you reach out to them. I'm going to put all of their contact information in the show notes. You're not alone. You've got help. This is the Rebel Tribe, and we do health a little differently here. So until next time, we will see you next week.